Welcome to the Schmoopydady streaming experience. I'm your host, as per usual, Schmoopydady. If it's the first time you're watching the stream, the follow the video on YouTube. I'm a monthly Hearthstone Wild Legend player who typically hits Legend first of the month, and after that I goof off. When I goof off, I play your decks. And what I plan to do before I play the rest of your decks that I'm playing catch-up on, I would like to take a moment to have my Snarky set review where we look at the upcoming set through the wild lens and a sort of a wild perspective, see what we think is going to be any good in wild. And let's start out with the Imbue. We're really upset with Priest and Imbue because this is what got Raza the Unsealed nerfed. And for people who did enjoy Raza Priest, it was always and always has been sort of historically one of the more popular wild decks, whether it's good or whether it's not. It was sad to see the card nerfed. It was sad to see the card basically gutted. And so looking at the Imbue and having played the Imbue Hero Power as part of Born to be Wild in the Theory Crafting event, I get why Raza got nerfed. Like, I could see in Standard having an infinite value turn where you've got everything discounted by 6 and you just keep discovering and discovering and discovering and discovering. And all of a sudden you have a board full of shit. You have a bunch of shit in your hand. You've generated a bunch of shit. You've cleared your opponent's board. Like, I could see where it'd be absolutely fucking infuriating. That being said, I don't think Imbue Priest is going to be very good in Wild. I might eat my words on that one, but I just, something tells me that the random in Wild and the card quality is not going to make it good enough where even if it is very good in Standard, it's just not going to get there. As far as Imbue cards go, this is fine. This felt very strong, the Caldore Priestess. That actually was kind of like a cool card to play. But like Imbue in general, I think in Wild is going to kind of be sus. I'm going to end up playing a bunch of it because, you know, viewers are psychopaths, but like what can you do? Moonwell felt fine when you played it. But it has no type, so it's probably not going to see any play in Wild, not even in like normally Reno Priest. Better Shadow Word Pain. You might see some lunatics run it in Shadow Priest just because, like, at the worst, you're summoning a 2-drop for 2 mana. You know, somebody's going to post screenshots of, like, getting a Doomsayer or something like that. But, like, you know, it's fine if you're running a card like that. Okay, there's a very specific target you're trying to destroy in the meta. Okay, it's a fine spell. And, like, it's nice that you can just sort of dump it if you don't need it for tempo. Dog shit. Felt great when we ramped it up. When we didn't ramp it up, felt like dog shit. Dog shit. Surprisingly decent card, Tyrande. I don't know if I'm running her in Shadow Priest. People were talking about running her in Shadow Priest. I think she's too slow for that. But you know what? XL Shadow Priest is going to be looking for some different slots, given that, like, Gorgon Zormu's getting nerfed. And there's a couple other cards whose power level is getting shifted around. I might consider slotting her in. She's definitely on a short list. If you're planning on going long and you want your burn to end up doubling up and tripling up. Never seeing play in Wild on purpose unless you have a dragon-specific deck. And even then, the elusive, the one dragon deck that I can think of where this might slot in might be like an Inner Fire or Bless style dragon deck where you go a little bit more mid-range and you've got Twilight Drakes and you've got different dragons that are sort of like chonky and AoEing and clearing, and like you can't target this with spells, so like no shot you're fucking playing it in that. So like kind of just like an arena card. Decent arena card, but like an arena card. Aviana, Elun's Chosen is perhaps the single worst Hearthstone card I've ever seen play thus far. We transformed one of our Aviana into a different legendary and kept the stats and the cost, and it felt more playable in a deck where it had no synergy than Aviana Elun's Chosen. I'm sure there's going to be some silly combo we can do with this, but holy shit, it feels super slow and not at all worth. Death Knight. I think this card is being undersold for how obnoxious it is as just like a passive defensive tool. I've dropped it for 7 mana. It breaks into beetles when you finally chunk through it. And if you don't squash the individual beetles the fucker comes back. But Schmoopy, it's never swinging face. You don't give a shit if it doesn't swing face. It's just obnoxious. It's unfucking killable unless you're willing to squash every single goddamn beetle, and maybe you are. But then you've just taken a bunch of damage that you otherwise would have sent face and sunk it into fucking beetles. I think this card is really, really fucking obnoxious, and I think it's going to be like S tier in Arena and probably have no home because it's a good card. But like, what are you actually running this in with this rune setup in Standard or Wild? I'm not sure. People got excited about this possibly in Wild as an anti-combo card. You have to build up corpses before it's any good, though. So I don't know. It feels kind of too slow for me. Fine for making corpses and being anti-aggro. Dark Gifts are good if like we're doing some sort of control, unholy blood DK. This is a fine 1-drop in it, I guess. Like we have kind of a lot of weird bad undeads in Wild though. So Dark Gift good. Undead's bad. Probably doesn't see play. It's probably dog shit. I've talked myself out of it. There we go. The leeches felt good. The leech package felt good. Felt like it's going to be strong as standard. And the leech package feels like fun enough that with some decent support in Wild, like could be a good bolster for like not a duplicate control triple blood DK. Of course, that assumes that leeches are a great way to get around ice block and stuff like that. Like you don't have to worry necessarily about, oh man, I'm going to get taken hostage. With the Viper package, with the Zerg package, you're constantly printing dirty rats into slower decks. And with leeches now you can get around ice block. You can run neutral cards like Watch Post and Razor Scale to kind of fuck with combo and Okani. And you have like regular triple blood removal. Like DK is almost becoming a real class in Wild. That'd be kind of cool. I really liked this 1-drop, by the way. I know at the end of the turn seems kind of slow, but I think especially with the leeches, especially unanswered, this thing kind of spirals out of control. And decent body, 1/2 for this kind of effect. It's sort of sticking around nonchalantly. I liked it. Probably more of an aggro card than a slower card though. Weapon felt fine, but like you need a very specific, like need Morbid Swarm into it for it to be any good. Ursoc felt very strong. I don't know if I would ever play it in the same deck that I'm playing 8 Hands from Beyond, because 8 Hands from Beyond, I'm expecting us to accelerate ourselves into a Wild late game, and Ursoc might be strong enough that that's okay, but maybe not. Felt very strong every time I played it, though. One of the better Wild Gods, at least, that I got to play. Yeah, somebody's going to come up with a combo to murder you with this at some point in Wild. With Symphony being reverted back to its original cost or cost reduction and always tutoring the top minion in your deck. You could always tutor this with Symphony and then play Glinda and then OTK your opponent if you have board space. Sure. Okay. Seems all right. Dog shit. I wondered if like Seedlock would want some sort of tutor for their Flesh Giants or something along those lines. I don't know. Seems like a very like decent tutor, 1 mana 1/1, draw a minion that maybe the only minion in your deck is Eridar Brute. It's a minion that's never going to actually cost 7, but it costs 7, but it's reduced. I don't know. It could be a decent tutor for a card like that. I like it a lot for minions that aren't the cost that you're tutoring them for. So like, yes, Flesh Giant costs 12, but it's not going to cost 12 when you actually cast it. I think it'll have a home in Wild someplace. Maybe if Mind Lock's a thing, we use this in Mind Lock or some sort of combo. That's fine. Dog shit card. Surprisingly, probably going to be pretty strong for Standard. The Dark Gifts in general, I think, they're going to have to tweak them a little bit. Giving shit charge in Standard always seems kind of sus to me. And this thing having charge more often than not was actually kind of cool. Do I think it's good enough to make waves in Wild? Not really. Maybe it's a tier 3, tier 4 deck, but like, Seems strong for Standard, though. Rotten Apple, I just see redundancy in healing. Like, Seedlock right now, if it wants to, can just sort of turtle up and heal up and just sort of hate on aggro. And the quest line, you can kind of turbo and you can kind of hate on control. And then it's just down to whether or not you hit your disruption for a combo. I don't think this is necessarily going to move the needle on seed lock, but if it really wants to lock down aggro and just sort of turtle up and heal up and never lose any of those matchups, it can absolutely do so. And I really like the fact that it's a passive 3 damage at like the start of your turn, I believe. So like you could set the Rotten Apple and you could set yourself on the third part of the quest line with 3 to go, and you know you're not going to overdraw your quest reward, and like the Rotten Apple is going to end up like, you know, finishing that for you, and you've spent no mana. You've already spent the 2 mana on the other side. I think that's kind of an interesting application that you might see it over Dark Pact. Doesn't require a minion and also furthers the quest line. Possibly setting up for questline completions in fun ways. Like that could be actually decent for me. Seems like dog shit. I referred to this card as Shitbird throughout the entire stream for the theory crafting, and I think that tells you everything I think about that. If we're going to have some sort of like Sork or Magister's Apprentice Mage in Wild, it's probably going to be built around Magister's Apprentice, which means we have to use arcane spells. Is this a decent arcane spell to have? Yeah, it's fine. Do I think it's going to move the needle in a list like that? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Starfire is a shitload of mana, but you know what? Like getting a Moonfire that deals 2, and then like you pair that up with a Flame Waker. I don't know. This could see some play. I don't hate generating it, but I don't know if I hard run it. Felt like dog shit. I don't have any high expectations for it. Forbidden Shrine, I think, is going to be terrible and wild, but I could see it being a meta tyrant in something like Arena, where you're looking for very specific spells in a very limited pool, and the Forbidden Shrine is always hitting those spells. Or vice versa in like a 4-set meta in Standard. If the pool was a little bit more impressive, I'm told people look through and like it's not, because it is a random spell, so it can be from any class. But if you were to pick out a very specific mana cost that you're trying to target, then you might have like a Deca Lunacy situation, where Deca Lunacy was really good because of certain spells. It was always seemingly able to hit with very reasonable certainty. That's how that kind of feels. Why is it bigger than everything else? Fucking weird. Star Surger is basically like a 3-mana shield slam. This felt like very funny to cast 3 mana for 17 damage, but like not very practical. The Legendary felt fine. When you got to cast it, it was a pretty good payoff in a bubble against other cards from the same exact fucking set. I don't know. It's fine. I think Wisp Mage is probably going to be pretty bad, but like this is an okay payoff for it. 20 damage amongst all enemies is a lot of fucking damage. Divination felt slow and bad unless you immediately like paired it up with Spirit Gatherer, which feels like a fine support for Imbue. I don't have a whole lot of hope for Imbue in general in Wild as far as applications go, but I think in Mage it can at least be funnier because we've already got so much hero power support that stuff that increases the damage of your hero power is obviously also imbuing your hero at your hero power at the same time functionally. So that's part's kind of fun. Spirit Gatherer felt fine. Wisp Rider actually felt pretty okay for 5 mana because it's triggering your hero power, but it's also buffing it up. So it's kind of like a shittier Reckless Apprentice, but it's got a Wildfire attached to it. So it's actually kind of okay. Merry Moonkin actually felt pretty strong too if you got a board down of Wisps there. I would try playing that in Wild, but like it's probably too slow at 4 mana. Paladin stuff. There's like... This is where Holy Wrath Paladin existing kind of feels like it's limiting design, especially with the new cards. Ursine Maul, kind of a nutty card if you're always drawing your highest cost card. Dog shit because it's always drawing Ceaseless Expanse. Can't run it in Holy Wrath. Ursal, cast the highest cost spell from your hand as an aura that lasts 3 turns. You could like, you could narrow it down to timeout and have this casting timeout 3 turns in a row. Fucking sick. Real cool. Renewing Flames. I mean, this is cool to hit with Ursal. This felt very tempo forward. But like, I don't know. Now you're running a 7 mana nature spell in Holy Wrath. I don't know. And a beast. Like, dog shit card. All the dragon shit felt terrible to me. All the dragon shit. Dragon Paladin felt like dog shit. And you're going to request it, and I'm going to shame you for it. This felt good enough to just run on its own. Toreth the Unbreaking. Like, I don't think you put it in like Libram Paladin or anything like that. That seems like it's too low tempo for that. But just as like a giant annoying fuck up taunt that you just chuck out there on 5, and your opponent chunks into it, and then you drop Reno on 6 and they concede. Like, it's just gonna be good enough for that, I think. But there's other stuff we could probably cook with this, like some sort of like Starlight Groove scam, shit like that. It felt fine. All right. Rogue stuff. This actually, the Harbinger of the Blighted actually felt pretty strong, especially if you were to shadow step it back, because it just sort of vomits stats on the board. Probably better in Standard than it is in Wild. Web of Deception. It's yet another bounce, and it leaves behind a body. Depending on what you're bouncing and how you're bouncing, tempo forward bouncing stuff probably likes it. It's probably like a Reno Rogue card pretty easily because of the amount of tempo it's leaving behind. I was thinking maybe you even use it in like a spammy card, Miracle Rogue, because again, you drop down your Warmaul Challenger, you Web of Deception it, drop down your Warmaul Frostwolf War Master. Drop down your Frostwolf War Master. Now you're talking about like you've got a 4/4 and a 3/3/3. Like that could be okay. Twisted Web Weaver I think is going to be pretty good in Caverns Rogue, or at least that's where I would apply it. I don't know if it's going to be good, but that's where I would at least apply it. This felt great if you spammed it, but the deck that you're sort of building around spamming this feels fucking terrible. Like, what else do you do to win? I guess you make 4/4s, and then you drop this, and it's enough tempo that you time walk your opponent. I don't know. Dane fucked us up with this when we did this, but like that's Dane. It's not your average player. Looks like shit. Wasn't bad for a 1-mana spell, especially if you can combo and get Dark Gifts. Dark Gifts are good, but like only in a Thief deck. And only then if you're not facing another rogue, if you're trying to get it to trigger Velorok. 1-mana Cold Light Oracle, but you aren't guaranteed to be able to play the cards that you're actually drawing, quote unquote. Sure. Shadowcloaked Assailant is a funny card. I was thinking of as stupid applications of this card. The stupidest application of this card that I can think of is if, let's say, there's an S-tier rogue combo meta, you could fuck up your opponent by dropping a Shadowcloaked Assailant if you're able to tutor it specifically to interfere with the fucked up combo that your rogue opponent is also trying to do while you're trying to do it. So I could see it being like mirror tech in some sort of S-tier goldfish, coin flip meta. Sure, fine. I could see it being very funny in Reno Slop. Like, let's say you're playing Reno Rogue and you're playing against a bunch of other Reno decks, and you drop this, and your Reno cards are cards that are neutral payoffs that are also going to be in the opponent's deck. You're sending that shit back in the deck. That could be very funny. But this card at 4 mana is kind of priced to be tech and not priced to be a rogue card. So 4 mana for this effect that might do jack shit. Just a vanilla 3/5 in a lot of cases. Nobody's going to really put this in their deck on purpose unless there's a lot of purpose behind. Like, I'm specifically looking to target X. Funny card to talk about, but not a good card. Not going to make it. Meme card, cool. The mana reduction is kind of important, but if you think about it, it's worse than the spider that you get from excavating. Kind of a dog shit weapon, I'll be honestly. It's just gained poisonous for this turn. If it gained poisonous for all 3 charges, we'd be having a slightly different conversation, but I still think it wouldn't see play. Imbue and Hunter is such a weird thing. We just got Nayeli, which is perhaps the best hero transformation card ever. And I think that you can make the argument that it's better than Benedictus. At some point, Shadow Priest could be sort of pushed out of being meta relevant. 1 mana tracking to sort of go get whatever the fuck you want in your deck is kind of bananas. And to run it alongside a minion that is going to imbue your hero power and then overwrite the tracking, it's a little tough to sell to me. I'd love to say that this is like a Reno Hunter card, or this is some sort of Dromonger Hunter card. It's just not. We make copies of our beasts. We don't want to overwrite our Nayeli hero power. So what kind of deck does run this card? I think a Knuckles Hunter or an Amalgam Hunter. Some sort of like, I need to go get this specific minion for this specific situation, and then I need to reduce its cost and buff its attack. I think it could be really good in that. And in that kind of deck, like, you're just looking to assemble your combo pieces and then you're good to go. And then the actual buffing of the attack and the reducing of the cost actually has some meaning because that's how you end up finding lethal. I don't think we ever run an Imbue Hunter where we run a bunch of beasts and we're looking to reduce them. Like, I don't think these guys see any play. Not that these are bad cards, but like I don't think they're good enough to see play in Wild personally. Spirit Bond was like, fine. If you really like flanking shot, this is better, right? Amphibian Spirit, I'm sure somebody's going to do something fucked up and stupid with this. This is like, we've broken this in BGs several times. I don't know how we're going to do it in Wild. We'll do it at some point. I actually like this card. If you spam spells, like having multiple animal companions is actually a strong strategy. Anybody who has ever had Tavish up when you completed the second stage of the quest line, you'll know what I'm talking about. You can really grind Rhino Priests into dust that way. But yeah, it's probably too slow for Wild now, but I like it as a card. Goldrin and King Plush is a very funny combo, especially if you reduce to both these fuckers to lower counts where you can play them in the same turn, and King Plush's attack is like 15 or higher. You can start OTKing people with Goldrin, which is kind of cool. Shepherd's Crook actually felt okay to me, but like I don't think I ever run it on purpose ever. A weird fucked up card. I don't know. Choose one, 4 mana for 4 damage, or summon 2 wolves with rush. I don't know. Nah, it's a beast. Yuck. Demon Hunter. The Dread Seeds. The Dread Seeds felt strong to me. The Dread Seeds felt okay. Keep an eye out for that. Like I was really impressed by the Dread Seeds as far as like filler cards. Like these 2 cards felt very good to me. I don't know if I'd run this on purpose, but these 2 at least felt very strong to me as far as you know, tempo goes. Like they were pretty okay. Dog shit card. It's worse than Lady Prestor. It's worse than Lady Prestor. Seemed fine. Like, this is a way that you can go face while also dealing with your board a little bit. I kind of like that. The Ferocious Fellbat and the Ravenous Fell Hunter. These 2 cards, I actually like these a lot for some sort of a Starship, or even nerfed Arcanite Defense Crystal deck in Wild. Is that going to be a good deck? No, probably not. Probably not going to be a good deck. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be funny, and it is kind of cool. Jump Scare is terrible. Omen felt strong when you got him down, but even then, like only with Wind Fury, you almost want Omen to be like. You almost wanted Omen to cut the Wind Fury and instead be like one of those like Mishmasher, right? Whereas like it just keeps attacking until it dies. That's why I almost would want to see Omen and then see the Death Rattle do something from there. Felt a little bit weak otherwise. Kind of looks like dog shit to me. Slow and bad and even. Slow and bad in even Shaman, because you're really not using your hero power enough. You'd have to use it turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 in order for this to come down on turn 4. Turn 1, you use your hero power. That's fine. Turn 2, you should be equipping Chisel. Maybe you have the coin, Schmoopy. Okay, fine. So maybe on the coin this comes down on turn 4? Maybe? I don't know. Is that good enough to push even Shaman over the top? No, probably not. Restore 4 health to your and imbue. What the fuck was even like? I don't even know. What the fuck was the imbue for Shaman? I didn't even see imbue for Shaman. I don't know. Restores 4 health, and if you want to imbue, that seems fine. Each minion gets shuffled to a random player's deck. Seems really expensive for a worse Psychic Scream. He's cute. The most awkward 2 mana draw 2 ever. Felt like a decent spell actually, but like that's going to be like busted in Arena. We're not going to play that on purpose. No? Weird. Actually felt very strong, especially like if you were summoning a bunch of things from Nebula and then you drop them down and all that shit came back. That was actually pretty okay. And we do have ways of generating Ragnaros in our Shaman, so like that was actually all right. No, we don't play that in Wild. I guess if you're going to like Imbue Shaman, you do this. I don't know. Too specific. New way to trigger Mechathune? One of the things that always bothered me about Mechathune Warrior in Wild is that you always had to save your second Shield Shatter. Instead of using it for removal, you had to save it for the combo whilst you died. And Siphoning Growth is a 1-mana way to basically get around doing that. And the thing is like, let's say you absolutely need the 8 armor now. You just use your Siphon Growth on one of your little shitters that you're running to plow through the quest anyway. I don't know. I like this card a lot, actually. So, yeah, that seems decent. Succumb to Madness. It's cute that you could always target Yasandra every single time as best as you can. But otherwise, like, eh. Eggs? Some sort of egg? Berserk? Tempo? Deck, probably fine. There's like the Enraged Shell's pretty good. This is also pretty good in Enrage. Ominous Nightmares. That's fine. This is a little slow for Enrage. This felt bad. Dark Gifts are good. I don't know if we want a lot of dragons in our deck. Tortola actually felt really obnoxious. There were a couple times where we played this against some decks in the Theory Craft, and they just could not get through it. The fact that it's elusive and you can't target it with like any kind of like spell removal is really fucked up. And the fact that it's giving you armor while you're taking damage, I thought this was a good card when it came out. I think it is good. It's just you're going to have to cheat it out somehow. If you're paying 10 mana for this card, you're crying yourself to sleep at night. But if you're chemical spilling it out on 5 every time, you're actually probably pretty okay with it. Every time Cenarius hit the table, I felt like we fucking died. My gut's telling me this card is actually pretty good. Like, I think if you play it in Druid and Wild where, you know, we can afford to run some greedy shits and, like, it's a high-impact minion. Like, it drops down, and all of a sudden you're showing 20 power and 28 health. 15 of it's taunt. Like, it's kind of like a game ender versus aggro type card. I don't know. He felt pretty strong to me. Grove Shaper, I know everybody's all up in arms. Whoa. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. Grove Shaper, I hardly know her. So when we look at Grove Shaper, shut the fuck. Oh my god, it's gonna send me to the back again. I don't want to go back to. Okay, we're gonna cool out, chat. We're gonna be calm. I'm gonna edit this part out. Okay, there we go. Grove Shaper, I hardly know her. Anyway, so Grove Shaper, everybody's all up in arms because we've got an infinite mill combo, right? We get a naturalize, get a Jasper Cellstone, get Floop in there somehow, just start killing shit. Right, let's ignore that Naturalize has a really slow animation time. Let's ignore the fact that, like, you don't always find those pieces easily and assemble the combo together. I think it's a nice package in a mill deck, and if you happen to pull it off, great. Like, if you're playing Grove Shaper in a mill deck, there's a lot of high value targets that you can end up picking up that end up making it worth your while to just hard run her anyway. And at 6 health, it's actually kind of hard to remove her. But, like, I don't think the OTK is real. I don't think it's very good as a standalone deck. I think it's going to be less consistent than Quasar Rogue. Unnerved Quasar Rogue. Like, I think it's going to be that style of just like, well, if I high roll. And I think it's going to require animation cheating because I think, like, the animations themselves are going to be so fucking slow. So, no, I don't think it's any good. I think it's worse than Barnes. I think it's worse than Malygos. I think it's a nice package. It's not a real deck. Don't worry about it. This is fucking weird. I know, I'll lose this card randomly. Like, it's great off and evolve. I don't know when I'd ever, like, play it on purpose, but, like, it's a lot of heal and you can't remove it. You got to chunk through it physically. It's all right. Ward of Earth felt okay when you generated it, not wild relevant. This felt like dog shit, not wild relevant. This is probably going to be kind of cool for some combo decks. Nature version of, like, Primordial Glyph. I think there might be, like, a token, like, Jade Druid style deck that we end up playing for funsies, just, like, ramping shit up with nature spells. Horn of Plenty is going to be great in that deck. Ditto, it's going to be great in that deck. Makes a fun deck in Wild that's probably tier 35. I don't know. But, like, yeah, that's going to be fun. We're going to try that. This actually didn't feel all that bad. One of the better neutral minions if you cheated out. Weird way to stave off fatigue. I'm never putting this in my deck on purpose, ever. Dog shit. This card is so bad, I'm actually surprised they even bothered to print it. This might be the worst card ever printed, because it's just, like, boring and weird and bad. I don't know. Agent of Yours sucks. Mother Duck's actually probably a pretty good card. Curious Cumulus is probably the funniest way that you can tech against Holy Wrath Paladins in our format. Dream Rager sucks. Shitty meme. Daydreaming Pixie sucks. Critter Caretaker. If you're still living in, like, I don't know, what would it be, 2018, and you're playing Mistress of Mixtures, this is arguably a better Mistress of Mixtures, to be honest with you. More healing over time if it sticks around. Dreambound Raptor looks like dog shit. I'm never playing this Drake on purpose in my deck unless I... Yeah, I'm never playing this on purpose. I might play this on purpose, but even this is kind of tough to swallow. It's probably a good arena card. Felt terrible to play. Probably sees play in LPG. Some sort of deck where you want to tutor some very high value, high cost spell. I don't know. Kind of a cool card, and then you realize that it's not like gaining attack for a number of X number of spells that you play. It's the cost of the spells. And if I'm spamming a bunch of zero cost spells, this is getting no attack. I want to believe in this card and think that it's good, but it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. It's got a huge ass. It can stick around, but like it's a tough sell. Pedal Peddler would be very interesting if we still had like the Shadow aggro Dragon Priest still hanging around, but they're gutting Zarimi, so no shot that's around. This would actually be a pretty good 2-drop in that deck. The fact that it's very specifically a random friendly dragon, Twisted Treant sucks. Tranquil Treant looks like it should be fine, but it actually felt like it sucked because the opponent never killed it. And also, I felt like I had to trade with it at some point. When I had to trade with it, I felt like I was falling behind. So, shit card. Who gives a shit? Meme card. Hopeful Dryad. Hopeful Dryad actually felt pretty good when I played it. I would actually consider playing it in Shadow Priest because the dream cards are all kind of good and like low costed and tempo forward. So I'm actually going to probably try playing this in Shadow Priest considering I'm losing Gorgon Zormu and I'm cutting my ETC because I half played it for Raza, the now neutered. So I've got 2 slots open. Maybe I'll just stick in some hopeful Dryads and be hopeful that they're any good. Seems like shit. Shavius is a really interesting card. Xavius, Shavius. You say tomato, I say tomato. The fact that you are picking from one of 3 minions in your deck, and then you're giving it a Dark Gift, and Dark Gifts are good. I think it's a really interesting minion tutor in a deck that doesn't run all that many minions, because it's kind of tempo forward, and again, Dark Gifts are good. Unless like there's a Dark Gift that absolutely cucks whatever you're trying to do, but I don't know too many situations when that's going to happen. But I don't know, just like vanilla decent card at 4 mana, stick in your Reno piles and enjoy. Or like might be like a weird combo enabler. You know, wouldn't shock me to see this popping up in Rogue, where you would need like we've got better minion tutors, but I'm just saying like that kind of thing where it's just like, well, I'm limited on minion tutors. Well, here's a 4 mana minion tutor, and if you could bounce it around, you can tutor it some more. So I don't know, wouldn't shock me. This card would have gone so hard like 3-4 years ago. Ditto with this card. I think these cards are actually kind of okay, especially in like arena if you're always going to be, hero powering a lot. This was a decent Imbue support card. This is probably the best Imbue support card. If Imbue is going to be good, those 2 cards are probably okay. This card felt like shit. The Shaladrasil actually felt pretty strong. I would put it in a pile. It's a fun card. It's easy to corrupt if you're playing, a deck that doesn't give shit about mana. And the corrupted versions are very strong and very good too. So, like, I don't know. You could play that. You could convince me to play that in a pile, and I wouldn't hate myself. Treacherous Tormentor is going to be dog shit in Wild, but I bet you this card's going to be busted in Arena. One of the best cards right now is Paparazzi in Arena because you discover a legendary card, a random legendary. But the legendaries that you discover in Arena, when you find a really good legendary, completely flips the match on its head. This just seems like, Paparazzi 2.0, except you're also giving the legendary a Dark Gift, which is kind of busted. Creature Madness, wouldn't put him in my deck on purpose in Wild, but like Dark Gifts are fine. Ysera has enabled some combos. Overall, I think my general feels for how the team is going about making these expansions. We saw it with Great Dark Beyond. Things had to be nerfed in order for Great Dark Beyond to sort of blossom and come into its own. And then we actually needed a themed mini set where some cool shit was going on to further push certain themes and see it sort of come into its own. But it feels like the team in general, the devs, are taking sets and they're ramping down the power level. And I think they're doing this based off of feedback from, the larger base of Reddit and the people that bitch the most about Hearthstone, about it being too much mana cheat or like too high a power level. For me, it feels like they're just advocating for boring game design. I think when we're dropping the power level and we're not doing new and exciting and powerful things, I think in general, it leaves these sets feeling a little bit empty. I think what's going to happen is I think the Wild meta is largely going to look pretty much the same as the last Wild meta. I expect, given the reverts, Libram Paladin might pick up a bit, given that it's going to be able to run Showdown and Prismatic Beam to sort of shore up some of its weaker matchups in the aggro field. Like Shadow Priest is going to have a real fucking tough time with Showdown Beam. You have a really good Pirate Opener, which right now is like the one weakness for Libram Paladin that you can exploit like time in, time out. You drop, you have a nice wide Pirate Opener. They drop Showdown. They coin Showdown and they beam you, and they've got 3/3/3s on board. Dude, you fucking died. So, I expect some little shakeups like that. That might be a more impactful impact than the set will on the Wild format. If the meta stays basically the same, I think that's largely okay. I kind of like the Wild meta right now. There's a variety of shit that you can try to do. There's a variety of decks. There's a lot of good budget decks. There's a lot of... the top of the meta is mostly ruled by decks that take a lot of skill to play and are very good into Libram Paladin, so it's not like Libram Paladin is a big problem up at the top of the meta. So, if you want to learn those more high-skill decks and farm the Libram Paladins, you can. If you want to do a little bit of memeing and just throw 40 cards in Renathal into a deck, insta tier 3 deck seems good. It would be great if this set continued to sort of do what the mini set did, which was not necessarily make new tier 1 decks, though it did make at least one or two, possibly in Blessed Priest and possibly in Drumonger Hunter. But it'd be cool if we got more tier 3 and tier 4 decks that you could play and win often enough that it doesn't feel terrible. I don't know. That is my, but overall, weaker set. I'm not super excited for anything, but, maybe I'll get a little bit more hype when new cards come out. Anyway, if you enjoy this content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing on my YouTube channel.